got my...
8 minutes can go by really fast, especially when a lawyer is talking. So what I'd like to do is jump right in to the 8 questions. These are the 8 most common questions that travel agents, travel agency owners, and other travel companies ask me these days. We'll do it Letterman style, starting with the 8th most popular, going to the 1st most popular. Okay, what's the 8th most popular? You've all come across this, I'm sure. All right, whoops, back. There we go. The 8th most popular. Oh, this is a pain in the ass. Mark, do I really have to register as a seller of travel in states where I have just one or a few sales with no location there? So I'm in Florida, and I have a couple of clients in California. Am I supposed to register as a seller of travel there? If I don't, what can happen to me? What are the penalties? Answer, yes, I'm afraid you must. That is the law, unless you're exempt. And the penalty for non-compliance is criminal prosecution potentially, but I've never known any travel seller to be criminally prosecuted, so don't worry about that. Civilly, in California, the penalty for late registration is $5 a day up to $500. In Florida, it's up to $5,000, but usually it just starts with a reminder letter and then a demand letter, and then you register. If you'd like to know whether you're exempt or who can be exempt, go to travelweekly.com and search under Seller of Travel Exemption Pestronk, and you will see at least three columns on the subject of who can be exempt. Okay, next one. Number 7. If my agency employee quits and goes to work for another agency and transfers his or her bookings or has them canceled and rebooked to the new agency, am I still entitled to the commission? Yes or no? Yes. Yes, you are. The agency where the sale took place is entitled to the commissions. That's the law. It's called the procuring cause doctrine, which means that when an agent brings the parties together, resulting in a sale, then they've earned the commission. You can see this obviously in real estate. If I'm a real estate agent representing you, the seller, and we're about to go to closing, but the day before closing, the parties get together and say, let's bypass Mark and have another real estate agent. You know, in that case, I'm still entitled to commission, obviously, right? It's obvious in real estate, not so obvious. And does it matter whether the supplier has already paid the new travel agency? Does it matter? No, it does not matter. The law is the same. The supplier owes you the commission. The new travel agency owes you the commission as well. You can recover it from either of them. Okay, number 6, switching gears to corporate travel, where a lot of my clients are. How about this? Very, very common. Do corporate travel profiles belong to the corporation? If I input them in the GDS, have the corporate client for many years, and now I've lost the client, and the client demands that we turn over all the profiles so we can give them to the new agency. Are those profiles the property of the corporation? No. They're your property. Everything you put into the GDS is your property. It's a myth that this data belongs to the corporate client. Number 5. Okay. This is a tough one. How do I prevent credit card chargebacks for unauthorized credit card charges? Well, you can't prevent them all. But here is a good tip for non-in-person sales. In other words, sales made by telephone, email, or fax. Get a copy of the front and back of the driver's license or passport. Get a copy of a front and back of a credit card, obviously, and then get a signature on a charge slip. Then compare the names and the signatures. If they all match, you will have reduced the possibility of allegedly unauthorized charges by a long shot, by a lot, by 90%. My experience is that clients who suffer these debit memos or claims from suppliers because of chargebacks are experiencing them because the frontline agent didn't take these steps. Number 4. Okay, common one. You probably all faced this one time or another. If an employee signs a supplier contract without my permission, I'm the owner of the travel agency, can I get out of it by claiming that the employee was not authorized? Okay, let's say it's a group hotel contract with a hotel. The agent, frontline agent, signs a contract with the hotel for 1,000 rooms. It turns out you don't have a group client to occupy those 1,000 rooms. Can you get out of the contract if a travel agent has signed that contract? The answer is yes, you can, if the person who signed has a title which is not a corporate officer title, and you didn't take any steps that would indicate to the supplier that you had agreed to that contract, such as making a payment. So you can get out of it under those circumstances. Make sure you haven't taken any steps, and make sure the person who signed it doesn't have a title like vice president or director or even manager. Number 3. Okay. A lot of you are, like me, are early baby boomers looking to have an exit strategy. So, Mark, how do I find a buyer for my business? In the order in which it works, in my experience. Number 1, this isn't backwards, this is forwards. The most likely place to find a good buyer is a fellow hostee of your host agency or the host agency itself. Quite a few host agencies are interested in buying your business, believe it or not. Your business does have a value, even if you're home-based. After that, I would say a fellow member of your consortium or trade association whom you trust. After that, I would say a national consulting firm or broker like Innovative Travel Acquisitions in Atlanta. Next, I would say a local business person, a local experienced business person in your community, because you don't want to sell to a person with no business experience. It doesn't have to be in the travel business. In fact, it may work out better if the person's not in the travel business. Next, I would say a local broker. Local brokers generally don't really know what they're doing when it comes to buying and selling travel agencies, my experience. And then finally, selling to an employee. That rarely works. Many travel agency owners have that as a plan, but it doesn't pan out. The reason is that the terms offered by the employee who has no savings are not very good. But if you're going to sell to an employee, make sure you get a lien on the assets so you can take the business back if the employee doesn't pay. Harsh, but that's my experience. Okay, how about this one? Could I, travel agency owner, be liable for failing to disclose a destination danger, such as a State Department travel warning for the Mexican state? Here is the answer. I'm sure you're all wondering what the answer is, and the answer is it is a bit complicated. First, if you are acting as a travel counselor, as opposed to someone who deals with a client who comes in knowing exactly what they want. If you're counseling clients, then you have a duty to disclose destination dangers that you either know about or should know about by reading the trade press. So if you know about or should know about the destination danger and you're counseling where to go, where to stay, you've got to disclose what you know at that time. Conversely, you do not have a duty to proactively investigate destination dangers. That's not your duty. You're not a private detective. You're not a State Department employee. Your job is travel. So it isn't really something that you can be expected to do. Now, a lot of you see the ambiguity in what I've just said. What do I mean by if you knew or should know? That's what the law is, and you can't really draw a bright line on liability. So therefore, what you've got to do is to have a disclaimer and have the client agree to a disclaimer that says you are not responsible for destination dangers, and that directs the client to the State Department's website, right? www.travel.state.gov. Put that in your disclaimer. And finally, most popular question, speaking of disclaimers, do you have a free sample disclaimer? Yes, I have several. And you can find them very conveniently on my website. They're Word documents, so you can adapt them, hopefully with legal advice. And go to my website, www.pestronk.com/free, as in no cost, .html. And there you will find 5 or 6 good, up-to-date disclaimers that cover just about everything that I think of that can go wrong on a trip. Okay, so do you have questions? Of course you have questions. So I will stick around for a while, and in the meantime, in the immortal words of the sergeant on Hill Street Blues, let's be careful out there. Thank you.